Have you ever had that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or dreaming?
This happened to me about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and to this day I still can't quite say what happened. I was in my room. I was browsing the internet while I had a head of garlic roasting in the toaster in the kitchen. Then I heard my dad come inside, so I figured I could kill two birds with one stone and say hi to my dad while I went to check on my garlic. I walked out of my room and caught my dad halfway down the hall. I said hi and something along the lines of, "Gotta go check on my garlic." My dad simply replied with a quick
Hi.
and walked straight into his room. I didn't think much of it and just figured he had a long day at work. It should be noted that our hallway is narrow and my dad is much bigger than me, so as I passed my dad in the hallway, I had to press myself against the wall to squeeze past him. While I was in the kitchen, I heard the front door open. My dad's car started and he left, which I thought was super odd since he hadn't been home for but a few minutes at this point. Again, I brushed it off and went back to my room. About 5 minutes later, the front door opened again and it was my dad, except this time, he was loud and energetic. He came in and immediately hollered out,
Is someone cooking? Something smells good.
I came out of my room and said, "Yeah, it's the garlic, remember?" That's when he asked me what I meant when I said, "Doesn't he remember?" And I explained to him that he had just been home and told him about the garlic when I passed him in the hallway. That I had just saw him a few minutes ago, and that he had walked straight into his room. His demeanor immediately changed and he said,
What do you mean? I just got off the highway and pulled into the driveway right now. Are you telling me someone went into my room?
I told him I saw him go into his room. At this point, he was dead serious and went to his room to check for any missing items. At this point, he was under the belief that a home invader had come in and rummaged around his house. Once he was calm, I explained to him exactly what had happened, and even explained that the person I saw was even wearing the exact outfit my dad was when he walked into the house. My dad was about as spooked as I was. To this day, I still have no idea what happened there. At one point, we thought that maybe my dad had an absence spell or something, since he's had times before when he was driving where he forgets chunks of time. Although we couldn't explain then why he came in and then immediately left again, or how it was that my dad clearly remembered just coming off the highway before getting into the house, or where he could have gone in the few brief minutes between when he first left and when he arrived again. To this day, the one part that still really creeps me out is just how close I had been to my father when I slipped past him in the hallway. If anyone has any ideas of what might have happened that night, I'm all ears. So, my birthday was a few months ago, and I recently set up a small business. So my best friend, Anna, gifted me a pen with my business name and logo printed on it. It's pretty cute, and I really liked the thought of using a personalized pen when I was organizing appointments and etc. I tested the pen on the back of my hand and, unfortunately, it was blue ink. I hate blue ink. It hurts my eyes when I write more than a couple of lines, and just prefer the look of black ink in general. I showed Anna the ink on the back of my hand. She also prefers black ink and was disappointed it was blue because she wasn't able to specify what color ink when ordering, and had been hoping black would be default. Anyways, I had the pen for a good while and never used it until this week. I met Anna and we were in her car when a client called to make an appointment. Blue pen was the only pen I had on hand, so I reluctantly used it to write down the details of the client and appointment and all the usual stuff. When I had finished with the call, I silently showed Anna what I had written. The ink was now black. Neither of us can explain or understand this. She and I both remember the blue ink that is now black ink. This happened last Saturday, Sunday. On Saturday, we took a short local trip with my family who visited me as I live in another city. After they left, I got home around 6 p.m. and was watching YouTube and whatnot. For some reason, I got an urge to call my grandpa. However, I had to get ready for a night out with my friends. We were meeting at 8 p.m. and so I thought I'd call him the next day. This was literally the first time I got this urge since we don't really talk that often. Anyway, the next day on Sunday at 4:10 p.m, my grandpa called me asking if I called him yesterday, as he got a missed call. I told him I didn't, but I did think of calling him. I asked when he received the missed call, and he said around 7 p.m. I was doing my makeup and stuff by then. However, I'm sure I didn't call him, and there's no such log on my phone. The last time we talked was July 12th, 2020, according to my call log. Interestingly, the urge I had was to call my grandpa, although he and my grandma share the same phone, and he was the one who called me instead of my grandma. Has anyone experienced something like this? Maybe you have an explanation for this. I found this extremely bizarre, yet I'm glad my grandpa called me about the supposed missed call, since I forgot to call him the next day. About 4 years ago, I had a very weird experience that has stuck with me ever since. I was driving home from work and it was about 4 a.m. It was pretty much just me on the road at that hour. I've driven this exact route many times and have never seen a deer, especially since this particular stretch of the freeway was far away from the mountains, where most of the deer tend to reside. But as I'm driving along, I feel like things slow down, and then all of a sudden, I see a part of the road that I'm not actually going to reach for a couple of minutes. I see a doe walk out of some trees on the right side of the road, look my direction, and then slowly walk to the left side and disappear off into some shrubs. In an instant, the view in front of me changed back to where I physically am on the road. As I approached the place I just had this vision of, I decided to slow down since I was going about 70 miles per hour and figured if a deer is truly going to cross, I should prepare. And sure enough, I get to that particular stretch of road. The deer walks out of the trees, looks at me and wanders off to the shrubs on the left. Exactly how I saw it a couple of minutes before. If I hadn't slowed down, I would have had very little to no time to react, and probably would have hit that deer. This experience is still unreal to me, no matter how hard I question it. So, I'm a grade 12 student coming to an end of my school days, and I usually tend to read during my bus rides till one day I stopped. I woke up one morning and got ready for school. I grabbed my backpack and my lunch and took off towards the bus stop. It was only a 5-minute walk from my home, so I wasn't worried too much about missing the bus. I had started reading a book I grabbed from my school's library for a book report. However, the book seemed to change with every page I flipped. When my bus arrived, I hopped on and was off to school. I put my book away so I could see where I was going, but something was different about the seats. You see, usually the bus is packed full with kids of all ages, but today it was empty. Thinking nothing of it, I took my usual spot at the back of the bus and pulled out my book and flipped to the page I was reading. Now here's where it gets interesting. I read a paragraph, but what I was reading wasn't what was written there before. It was talking about the book's character getting onto the bus and finding empty seats before taking theirs at the back. At this point I was confused, because the same thing the book stated was the same thing that happened to me. I kept reading until the bus came to a stop and the doors opened to let another student on. I looked up to see a student taking a seat at the very front. I went back to reading but found another statement written down. The girl looks up to see another student get on the bus before looking back down to her book. Now I was getting scared. I didn't know what was happening. This continued on for the next hour or so till the bus was filled with voices from students. I read another page of the book and found another sentence. The bus drops the students off at school, all except one, who runs to the front of the bus and looks out her bedroom window to find the bus leaving for school. I closed the book in fright and got up and ran to the front of the bus, only to look down and see the bus picking up students at the bus stop and leaving. I went to school the next day and to the library and returned the book, only to be told by the librarian that I had no record of taking out any book. This has had me wondering what happened to the book and where it had gone to. This will be short, but it's happened in the same place about half the time I drive through here. Back when I was 16, I had a boyfriend who lived almost 40 miles away from me. The drive from my house to his would usually take 45 minutes. This was before texting existed. One weekend, I got permission to go stay with my boyfriend, after our parents talked and made sure I would be sleeping on the couch by myself. So I called his house right before I left to let him know I was on my way. I took the usual drive, staying at the speed limit and enjoying the view. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. No weird light or fog or even a feeling. I pulled up to his house and started to gather my stuff when his mum came out and went pale. She said, "You're not supposed to be here yet." I asked her what she meant as we walked into the house. She replied, "You left 20 minutes ago and are already here? How fast did you drive?" I told her I stayed at the speed limit, even on the long dirt road. But sure enough, the clocks in the house and my watch all showed the same time. I was there more than 20 minutes early. I have no explanation, but I've driven that same hill with other people and it's happened. Ever since that first time, going over the one particular hill will cut 20 minutes off my drive, on average 4 out of 10 times. I wish I knew what was going on. Is there a section of frozen time where I'm aware of the landscape passing but time isn't actually moving? Do I jump through time? Is there something relativistic going on? I likely will never know. But until then, I'll enjoy being 20 minutes early for about half of my drives. Hello watchers and listeners. If you enjoyed that video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing. A huge thank you to all the Reddit users who allowed me to use their stories. Links to each story will be in the description below. If you have any stories you would like to share on my channel, please send them to my email, which is also in the description below. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who continues to support me. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe.